What is up, guys? My name is Joe Riga, and you're about to listen to episode number 7 of the Third Floor Chronicles. This was recorded with Tom Wilson Sunday, May 15th, right before the first show. Real cool guy. Hope you enjoy it. Check it out. What made you decide to start doing comedy, Tom?
I was acting, or I wasn't really acting. I was studying acting in New York. I wasn't getting cast in any shows, and a couple of my friends did stand up, and I started hanging out with them and going to shows and everything. And it was sort of like, man, you guys, you get paid for. I mean, you just get up on stage and do a show. Sure, I mean, I'll try it. I wasn't like one of those. I mean, I knew comedians and I watched comedians and I was a Steve Martin fan and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't the guy who was just dreamt of being a stand-up comedian. I just saw guys I knew doing it and really kind of thought, wow, I'm not getting cast in any shows. I could kind of write my own show, you know? I mean, I met Rich Hall early in my career as a stand-up, and Rich was like, yeah, you're studying acting, what, to be on a, Starsky and Hutch episode or something? I mean, I do a show every night, I mean, I write the show, and I put on the show. Why not do that?
You mentioned Steve Martin.
I wasn't done with my answer. Because early... Okay, I'm just kidding.
You mentioned Steve Martin. Any other influences early on?
Not before I was a comedian, no. As I said, like everybody, I watched The Tonight Show and saw David Steinberg and just all kinds of comedians. Steve Martin, of course, was huge at that time, and I went to see his concert when I was at college. He was doing it. He was doing his big tour. It was huge, and that was man, that was a revelation to me. I mean, I was a young kind of actor guy. But he comes out of there, 2,000 people in the audience going crazy for one guy in a white suit with an arrow through his head. And I just thought, man, that's really cool. That was a lot of fun. He actually worked with me in the audience. He did a magic trick with me. And that I thought I could have died that day, and my life was complete. I actually talked to Steve Martin, and he stood me up, and he made fun of me, and all my friends like patting me on the back and everything. So that was great. But yeah, that's pretty much my influence. Then when I began doing stand-up, then of course it's just a world of guys that were, pardon me, wonderful comedians that I saw when I was real. I mean, I started when I was like 19. So Larry Miller and Jerry Seinfeld and so many great, Jay Leno, so many great comedians that I got to see when I was a kid. So they were all influences on me, I think.
When you first started, like maybe your first year, were you doing like an open mic scene? Was it little showcases?
Yeah, there were open mics way back then. It'd be an open mic scene like Wednesday night comedy, Thursday disco, Friday foxy boxing. So I went to those open mics all over the place. And then I lived in Philadelphia at the time. I was sort of between New York and Philadelphia, and there were a few places. There was the London Pub, which was kind of a bar gig, and you kind of did that. And then the guys who ran that show asked you to do this gig called the Jailhouse, which was a little bar across the street from 30th Street Station in Philadelphia. And then if you did the Jailhouse and you did well at the Jailhouse, then you moved up to the clubs downtown, which were growing at the time, the Comedy Factory outlet.
Your first year, how often would you say, maybe on a weekly basis, were you actually getting stage time?
My first year?
Yeah, like between the open mics and different bars and stuff.
Once I started to do it most nights a week. Most nights. Just traveling by buses and trains to wherever they had a show. And it was usually bar gigs and open mics and this, and then some guy calls you, hey, we got this thing in New Jersey, it's $5 and maybe we could get a free club sandwich. Okay, great. You get in a car, just go to the gig not understanding what it is, but just getting out there to get on stage. So I did it a lot early on.
How long were you in New York before you made the move to LA?
Well, I was doing it in New York, and as I said, Philadelphia, but an hour and a half away. 79, 80, 81. I moved to LA in 81, so 2 years.
And what was the biggest difference you noticed between LA and maybe the East Coast? As far as stand-up.
I I didn't notice that much of a difference. I noticed, pardon me, well, I enjoyed performing in LA, but I didn't notice a big difference. You know what the difference was? The difference was I thought it was really hard to get on stage on LA, but maybe even harder to get on stage in New York because of Catch a Rising Star and everything. But if the MC of Catch kind of knew who you were, maybe you would get on stage. If they didn't know you, or one of their friends came in, you could be bumped easily to 2 a.m, which happened all the time. In LA, I just got kind of lucky. I auditioned at the Comedy Store there on Sunset. Literally the first week I was in town, I auditioned at the Comedy Store and was accepted as a regular. They didn't have, I think they have non-paid regulars, quote unquote, like the first 3 of the night, and paid regulars there at the store. Back then, it was kind of like you were a regular or you weren't a regular. So
can you explain the audition process for the people, or how was it like for you anyways?
The audition process at the Comedy Store and the Improv were a little bit different, but actually, again, going back to Rich Hall, because I was moving out, he was one of the only guys I knew in town, and he said, listen, you just go up to the open mic night on Monday nights, one at the Improv, one at the Comedy Store, and either Bud or Mitzi maybe takes a shine to you, maybe doesn't, and whichever one does, you end up working there. So the first place, because I knew a few guys at the Improv, I really didn't know anybody at the Comedy Store. I knew a few guys at the Improv, and I went over to the Improv, and you do numbers out of a bucket and see if you get on stage. I just never got on stage at the Improv, so nothing happened. Then I went over to the Comedy Store, and I got on stage, and just one of those things, like Mitzi, the owner of the Comedy Store, happened to be in the room, because you could never tell. They said, well, she's not here. You just do a show and you have to come back next week. She just happened to be in the room. She happened to see my set. You're a regular. So
the stars were aligning for
you. I guess for that, yeah. And as you can imagine, it caused great resentment among many comedians who had been trying to get in there for, a year.
Who were some of the people in LA that you kind of came up with at the time?
At this point, it's almost like a who's who of everything. I mean, Jay Leno was there every night. Bob Saget was there all the time. I remember the night that Jim Carrey drove into town and started doing his singing impression show that he had at the time. I mean, it's almost everybody. Pauly Shore was, I don't know how old he was, but he was a little kid just running around the hallways at the Comedy Store at that point. So, yeah, a lot of a who's who of comedy. At that point, Richard Pryor was going on every night getting ready for his live movies. He was doing Live on the Sunset Strip and all those comedy feature films that he did at the time. So he was there every night. And that was before the boom of the 80s. So every night it was Mick Jagger was in the room, Willie Nelson was in the room, bands were in the room. The Kinks are here, whatever. Everyone, that was the place to be. And every star was in the room, not to see me, but to see Richard Pryor, really, and to experience stand-up comedy, which was, it had been done a lot, but this is right before it kind of really caught on and boomed in the 80s, when it became just the hippest place to be in LA. I mean, I can't believe, I still see those guys. Blake Clark's an old friend of mine, is a wonderful comedian. I would say, my gosh, we really didn't even think of it at the time, but we were just at the absolute pinnacle of hipness in Hollywood at the time, which was stand-up comedy.
What would you say was your first big comedy break at that time? Besides getting in after that, once you got in, what do you think was your biggest break at that point?
As a stand-up or because I don't know. I don't know what my biggest break was. I think I started opening for rock bands. People started just seeing me on the shows, and then you just get bigger gigs. Then people are offering you road gigs, going up to San Francisco or Phoenix or flying back east to do old road gigs that I had. But then, you just start opening for bands, opening for Fleetwood Mac or the Tubes, or just...
How would you describe that experience, opening up for a rock group that was such a big, group
Well,
at that time?
Albert Brooks did a great bit about opening for Richie Havens in one of his albums, where he's talking about just the horror of opening for this huge rock act. And, his joke is everybody's chanting, Richie, Richie, Richie. Albert Brooks is coming to the back of the curtain at a stage hand. He's got his headset on and everything, and he says to him, "Your name Richie?" He goes, "No." Guy goes, "They're going to kill you." So I opened for a lot of bands where you didn't even get an introduction. Nobody even says, "All right, missing persons will be out in a second, but first, boo!" No. They wouldn't even do that. They would just one time, a guy shoved me. He just shoved me on stage because no one knew what to do. I had handed some intro to a guy, this is maybe what to say. "Oh, sure, we'll take care of that." The lights go down. People are like, "Whoa, whoa!" They're ready for the band. I hear nobody introducing me at all. And again, a guy, headset comes up, boom, just pushes me. I was like, get out there, do something. So I come out on stage, the spotlight hits you, whole crowd. Boo! But we didn't pay to see you. Boo! And then you just start.
How much time did you have to do at that point, you remember?
You probably, opening for a band, you do 20 minutes.
Did you make
And after 3 minutes, you look at your watch going, 3 minutes? I won't survive. But generally, it ends up going okay. If you're really good and you had good stuff, you hang in there, and some people in the crowd are thinking, "Oh, this is not bad. It's kind of solid." So by the end, I think the best you could do at the end, maybe half the crowd actually gives you an appreciative applause. Like, "Hey, man, all right, you hung in there. No, that was pretty good." The other half are just still talking to each other. I mean, I opened for a band. I have an old guitar. I play the guitar in my act. I always did. And there's a guitar I have at my house that has all these dings in the front of the guitar, like these bashes in where the finish is all, so that's from dodging nickels and pennies that people were throwing at me from the balcony. I was once opening for a band, and the spotlight is in my face, and I'm doing something. And it was like a helicopter. Something's coming through the light, and I duck. A guy threw his shoe at me from the second balcony, way up high. So the shoe hits the curtain behind me, and you're trying to make a joke. "Hey, okay, great," just trying to, shrug it off or whatever. So I'm continuing to do my act. 4 or 5 minutes later, this dude comes down to the edge of the stage. Hey, man, hey, and you're trying to ignore it. Is he a heckler? Well, hey. Finally, I literally have to stop. What is it, man? He goes, "Can I have my shoe back?" You mean my shoe? It's my shoe, dude. It's going home with me. You throw the shoe at me, I own it. But that's the experience mostly for opening for rock bands.
When was your first late night experience? Letterman or Tonight Show?
Pardon me. My first late night experience, Alan Thicke had a talk show years ago. Everyone talked about, he's the Johnny Carson of Canada. He has a talk show. It's a late night talk show. He's fabulous. The Johnny Carson of Canada. So he came to the United States. This is before that show, Growing Pains with Kirk Cameron. So he comes to the States, and I think it was a syndicated talk show that he did on, Channel 72 or whatever. I forget what it was, but it's Thick of the Night. So I got on there, and I gave a kind of a nervous performance.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably 22. So I was nervous, but I went for it. It went okay. It didn't go fabulously well. It went pretty good. The comics at the Comedy Store, I still remember Jay Leno was very supportive. Richard Belzer, these guys were at the store, and I come back into the store, and they were very nice. "Oh, that was good. No, good job. Keep working at it." It meant the world to me. Because, comics, we do a show and every single fault, you're going, oh my gosh, how could I possibly not have done that thing that I thought I wanted to do or whatever. So those guys were very nice.
How long in advance did you know that you got booked for Alan Thicke's show, and how did you prepare for your first late night experience?
It was probably a couple of weeks out, something like that. And you start writing down jokes. You start making set lists, figuring out the time, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And then you're doing it on stage. You're going out and trying to do guest sets or trying to just do a chunk within your time. If you got a 15-minute set, the first 5 minutes is going to be the TV set. And then I'll do the rest of it. So it was like that.
Did they have to go over your set to make sure it was okay for the show? Did they need to proofread it or anything back then?
They did. They all had talent coordinators who were either really hands-on or not that hands-on. I don't think the Thick of the Night had the kind of staff that would really get into the nuts and bolts of your set. The Tonight Show or Letterman, I think, is much more.
What about when you did that? What point of your career did you do the American, or like the Letterman or the Tonight Show?
Well, that was, I forget when. But, I mean, Back to the Future had happened, I think. Yeah, it had happened. So I was coming on, but I wanted to do stand-up and not just do the sit down on the couch and be an actor guy. So I ended up doing the Tonight Show, and that went well.
Did they want you to come on as an actor, or did they want you to come on as a comic?
They actually wanted me to come on as a comic because I met Jim McCauley, who was the talent coordinator at the Tonight Show. I met him at the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach, California. And he came and saw my show. Mike Lacey, who owns the Comedy Magic Club, was very supportive of me, a great guy, and he kept telling Jim, hey, you got to check this guy out. He should be on your show. So he came down and saw me and put me on the Tonight Show.
And after you mentioned Back to the Future, after the movies, how did that affect your audiences? Was it instantly? Did you see them grow? Were they going nuts? How did that affect your stand-up?
It's a tough question because it affected it in two ways that were maybe opposite. It certainly made people know who I was. When I came on the stage, people were like, oh, that guy, yeah, from the movie, we know him. But in the same way, it was a very, very strong pop cultural identity that I was known as the guy from the movie, not as the actor and comedian. Even though, I'd done the Tonight Show or Letter, I'd been kind of the funny, personable guy on talk shows. But the power of the movie was so great that it was kind of a hole I had to dig myself out of.
How did the movie affect your relationships with maybe your stand-up friends that were kind of growing up with you through the stand-up, and then they see you break off and do this gigantic movie? Did you get any jealousy or any kind of weird stuff like that?
Well, I think anyone who makes some kind of success is going to have resentful people that end up surprising you. But for the most part, I think guys were happy for me. I mean, I made friends with most every comic at the Comedy Store. There are guys that you just don't click with. And, the dark trench coat mafia guys, I never really, communed with them a whole lot. So they had a great resentment towards me, but I really didn't care. So with my friends and everything, I didn't have problems at all. We were all happy, whatever. I mean, and they understood hanging out with me that it was, it's part blessing. I wouldn't say it's a curse, but it's like a balance thing. It's just, okay, there are good points of it, there are challenging points of it, and you keep going.
Did you always incorporate music in your stand-up, or is that something you developed along the way? I
always liked music. I was a musician. I was a musical kid. I played the tuba in the band. That's how cool I was. So I always played the guitar. I always enjoyed doing it. So I just thought, I played the tuba in my act when I was first starting out for about 10 years. For 10 years, if I had a road gig, I was literally carrying a suitcase, a tuba in a case, a guitar, and a briefcase. So I did that, as I said, for like 10 years. And then one day in Cleveland's airport, and there was a problem, and we had to get our luggage off the thing, and I'm looking for my tuba, and it's like a half mile away, and I just thought, my friend, it is finished between us. I'm done doing the tuba in my act. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy doing the music. I enjoy writing funny songs. People who see my act, I'm not a guitar comic. I'm a comedian who plays a guitar, but I like doing it. And I get bored of listening to myself talk. If I'm doing like a half an hour of material, yeah, it's fine. It's fun. I'm having a good time, but at some point in my brain it's going, all right, what else? You want to juggle? You want to, whatever, make balloon animals? Come on, I mean, something else. Let's do something fun.
You incorporate a lot of improv into your stand-up. Is that something you're always good at, or is that another thing that you kind of developed over time?
I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't really good at it. It was, I was afraid of it. I was afraid of the drunk guys and the rowdy people and doing all these bar gigs. It was very difficult because I came from, I think, a theatrical background. I was an actor, an acting student, and I was always looking at the show like a play, like I was a character in a mini play where I was the lead actor in this little play. So if things got weird, if audiences got difficult, I was having a hard time. So I decided, well, this is a long time ago now, but I decided to just get in trouble on stage. So I went to the Comedy Store. I was working there for so many years, and Monday night was kind of the open mic free-for-all. You never knew what was going to happen in that room. So I specifically went on stage week after week after week after week with no material, nothing prepared, and would just start a fight with the audience.
Just to dig yourself out of that
hole.
hole.
Would just start in with the guys, that worst table of guys over in the corner, and I would immediately just get into it with them and dig myself out of the hole. And I got to admit, it was like going to the gym. It was like going to the gym. You will think up escape routes,
and they got to be funny,
and escape plans that have got to be funny. If you're on stage, on the tightrope with no net and guys throwing stuff.
You've been doing comedy, like you said, for 30 years. Without saying any names, have you ever been a victim of someone stealing your jokes? And also, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I have. I think everybody who's done it for a long time has. And I think comedians, they said it years ago, and I think it's as true today. I can write faster than you can steal. I am more creative than you are a thief. So if you really need to steal it, man, steal it. It's not going to take you anywhere.
Can you explain the strategy behind the reason why you open up your set strictly playing music right away without saying any jokes?
Yeah, people won't, I think, understand what I'm talking about, but I start the show with at least 6 minutes, sometimes 7 or 8, of silence. It's a bit that I do just looking at the people because I had a problem. That was kind of comedy problem solving. I do 2 things. I do a silent bit for about 5 minutes that gets a lot of laughs, and then I go right into the crowd and I start dealing with the crowd a little bit, just a little bit of crowd work. They are for 2 reasons. The first one, the silent thing, I found I was coming on stage like everybody. Grab the microphone. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Whatever. Oh, it's Friday night, and hey, you ever do this? Whatever. I was the first 2 minutes of my act, the audience wasn't really listening to what I was saying. They were looking at each other. They were squinting at me. They were going, oh, what's that guy? Oh, the guy from the movie. The one that was mean to Michael J. Fox. Remember? Oh, yeah. But whatever. No, bit. So I had to figure out a way to come on stage and just let people look at me. Just go, here. I don't even have to talk. Just everybody get your looks in. If you have to talk to us, go right ahead. Because I'm relaxed. I found there's interesting power in silence on stage. You just go up on stage, totally confident, just looking everybody in the eye, one person at a time. And it works on that level. It also works in just, wow, this guy's confident. He's not even talking. He doesn't
And
even...
when you say silence, for the people listening, you're playing the guitar. It's not
I'm just
like
playing the
you're-
guitar. I'm a guy on stage just playing the guitar, smiling, having fun, just goofing off, and just looking at people. And they just start laughing, just like, what is he going to say? I mean, is he going to say anything?
Let it get it out of their system.
Right.
Basically.
And then it ends with a joke that's a big punchline at the end that gets a big laugh. Then the second thing was going into the audience, because I was having problems with those guys that want a piece of the Back to the Future guy. The guys in the table of four that are a little too far from the stage. Yeah, butthead, hey, why don't you act like a tree? Get out. So I kind of, right off the bat in the show, I kind of go into the audience, not overly aggressively, but it's breaking the fourth wall in order to say, I can just come out here.
It's not a movie.
It's not a
TV.
movie. You're not watching a TV show. This is a live show, and here I am. And it's not threatening at all. It's actually friendly and fun, but it is being amidst the tables for people to go, wow, she's kind of bigger than I thought. He's sort of, I guess we should just watch the show. So it convinces people, it lets people, the first thing lets people just go, oh yeah, the guy from the movie, we saw that. The second thing is, oh, I guess we should just watch the show and not shout out stuff and mess with them the rest of the show. And then, of course, I end up doing that question song, which is millions of YouTube hits or whatever.
When did that come into your act?
Well, that was because literally I was in the parking lot of clubs until 2:30 in the morning with people going, so wait a minute, yeah, no, I got to go back to the hotel, I got to wake up for radio. Was it real manure in that truck or what? Was it? No, it's a movie. I heard those hoverboards were real. Is that? I mean, the hoverboards? No, it's a movie. Yeah, it's all fake. I'm an actor. I was mean to them, and then they yell cut, and then we have red vines and just hang out. So another kind of problem solution, figuring people are always asking me these questions, so I'll write a song that just makes sure everyone understands, I've kind of heard this before. And interestingly, it helps the whole audience kind of get on my side with that. Because it's funny, because then later in the show, like a half hour later, some dude's drunk. And he's like, butthead, it's so funny. Like, the whole crowd is turning to the guy like, hey, man, he dealt with that, dude. Let him up. He's doing a show.
That's a good idea. When did you record your DVD special?
That was about 3 years ago now.
And how long did you prepare before you actually recorded the DVD?
I was a replacement for another comedian, so I only had 3 days to get ready to tape an hour and 15 minutes. So the producer just called me, like, somebody fell out. Do you want to do this show? Do a DVD taping? Yes. So I just showed up and did it.
How nervous were you when it was unexpected like that? Were you prepared for it, or were you freaking out?
I think I was prepared for it. I was prepared for it material-wise. I was freaking out if anyone saw the DVD. I just sweat through everything I ever had, because I show up at the DVD. We all have our impressions of what our DVD will be like, and it will be great, and the audience will be rocking, and it'll be a standing O and everything. And everything went fine, but I show up at the theater that seats, 1,000 people down in Orange County, California. It's the middle of the summer. I walk into the theater at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a show that night, and it is stifling hot in the theater. And so within the first 5 seconds, I think, oh, I'm dead. The air conditioning is busted, or they haven't had it on, or whatever. Because the hot television lights and everything, that place is going to heat up a lot. Even so, when you walk into a theater like that at 2 in the afternoon, if it's going to be packed with people in July, that place had better be a refrigerator. Frozen. So I came in, and it's boiling hot. I'm thinking, wow, this isn't good. And you're asking around, going, hey, can you turn on the air? Yeah, we're having problems with that. We have a bunch of guys working on it all afternoon. Guys are on ladders working it. So So the only thing that I remember was it was just boiling. One of the producers comes up on stage before the special, and we're talking about this thing, and the guy goes, "My gosh, it must be 120 degrees up here." Hey, surprise, surprise, buddy. Yeah, this is going to be a hot one.
Do you have any, as a comic, do you have any creative control as far as the editing of the DVD, or do they just kind of take
Yeah, no, you make suggestions, of course. It's not total control. You can't have that unless you make it yourself. But certainly they showed me things, and we had suggestions back and forth to what I liked and didn't like.
Finally, last question a lot of the comics always want to hear. Tell us about the last time, or maybe one of your favorite times, you had just a bad set.
Wow. It's been a long time now. I have to think, because I don't mean that like bragging or whatever. I mean, at a certain point in comedy, you become a chameleon so you can change to fit the gig. Because now, if you're hired for money, hey, man, you have to deliver the goods. So if you have to change things, you really can't go to some corporate gig and tell the people, "Hey, man, I'm doing my art here. If you're not into my thing, that's a you problem, people. Get into my vibe." No, you're taking money to make them laugh. So, you work on ways to make it happen.
Anything maybe early in the career that stands
Early
out?
in the career, man, there are a million of them. There are a million of them. I was having a horrible set one night, and two ladies in the front row start literally shouting like, "Take off your pants! Take them off!" Like, oh, please, And one of them was a little drunker than the other. So the one lady's just going, "Hey, Rose, knock it off. Leave him alone. He's trying to do his thing, Rose." So Rose, or whatever her name was, she goes, "Oh, you won't take it off. Then the lady had to weigh 350, okay? "If you don't take it off, I will." She takes off her shirt, no bra, gets up, starts dancing in front of the audience. I'm like, I have no idea what to do here. And then the other lady who was trying to shut her up stood up next to her and punched her right in the face. So two gigantic women, one topless, fist fighting in the front row of the show in the middle of a bad set.
Thank you, my
It's
friend.
a lot of fun. Thanks, Joe.
Well, there you have it, folks. Episode number 7 is in the books. If you like what you heard from Tom Wilson, be sure to check him out online at TomWilsonUSA.com. Also, he has a DVD on iTunes. It's called Bigger Than You. If you're a fan of the Third Floor Chronicles, be sure to check out our archives on YouTube. We've got Greg Fitzsimmons, Matt Bronger, Al Jackson, Dana Gould. The list goes on and on. So until next time, my name is Joe Riga. Thank you.